Okay, guys, let's get right into this video. So here's basically the understanding of it. There's this thing called the marriage penalty. Some of you know what it is, some of you don't, but it affects SSI people. What is SSI? SSI is a lot of things. It's the program of last resort, which is a cute way of saying if you are in a poverty situation, right? If you're a refugee, an asylum seeker, if you are disabled, if you are over 65, you don't have much money, you don't have like traditional retirement that's going to back you to a large enough extent or at all, then you go on SSI. SSI is supplemental security income. It is a poverty disability program. But when you have two disabled people both receiving SSI benefits and they both get married together or they were married already, they reduce both of their SSI benefits. Now, just to understand this a little bit more, I know what you're thinking. Why would they reduce SSI people's benefits when it's already super duper low to begin with? Well, the idea behind it was that if you have essentially two people living together, right? You have two people living together, then what happens is it should cost, in theory, less for those two people to live together. They're sharing the same heat, they're sharing the same AC. They're sharing less electric when it comes to prepare food, less when it comes to different utilities, etc. Of course, they eat the same amount of food, but the preparation might be less because you're doing it all at once. You might have only one car, fixes the transportation issue. So their claim to fame with this marriage penalty rule, which is terrible, immoral, unethical, is that it's cheaper by the dozen, right? If you have two people living together, it should be cheaper. Now, in 2024, the amount for an individual is $943 maximum for SSI benefits. So that's if they get the maximum SSI benefits, they get $943. But, and I want to go through this, the amount for a couple where there's two people that are married gets $1,415 total. That means you combine the two together. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, why don't they just take 943 and then multiply by 2 and give them $1,886? Because $1,886 is SSI person 1 married to SSI person 2, and they both get their check, right? That makes sense. But the reality is that they go ahead and reduce those two individuals' SSI benefits by a total of $471 because they believe it's cheaper to go ahead and basically just, essentially live together, and therefore they can give them less. Do they deserve essentially $471 less as a couple per month? No. Is it a terrible rule? Absolutely. Could it be fixed very quickly? It's literally a couple of sentences and it'd be done. It is a bill that both many Republicans and almost all Democrats support. So why hasn't it passed? You know why. You know why. At the end of the day, you know why. Okay. The focus is not on American citizens right now. Now, with that said, I want to go through this. So what happened? On December 13th, 2022, President Biden, signed H.R. 8404, the Respect for Marriage Act, which became Public Law 117-228. The House previously passed the bill on December 8th, 2022, and the Senate amended and passed it on November 29th, 2022. Now, this law generally revokes a 1996 law that had defined marriage as between one man and one woman until it was struck down. I'm reading this. This is straight from the Social Security Legislative Bulletin. Until it was struck down by the Supreme Court of the United States versus Windsor, the Respect for Marriage Act replaces the 1996 law with a new definition of marriage for federal programs as described below. This new definition is different than the Social Security Act's definition for the Social Security and Supplemental Security Income programs. However, we do not expect, and here's the BSE part, however, we do not expect this new definition to change in practice how we evaluate marriages and most claims. We will continue to analyze this bill and provide additional guidance. They actually wrote a literal disclaimer into it. They wrote it in there because they knew this was not going to be good for the LGBTQ community. They knew it, and I'll tell you why. It's simple. They changed the law at a federal level so that marriage is not between a man and a woman, it's between two people. I'll just read it to you. Here you go. U.S. marriage. A person is considered married if the marriage was between two people and it was valid in the state, territory, possession, where and when it occurred. Now, they gave a disclaimer here specifically for SSI benefits, which we're going to go into why. The disclaimer is for Social Security benefits, the Social Security Act generally requires us to apply the law of the worker's domicile state where you live, or the law of the District of Columbia if the worker is domiciled outside of the state to determine marital status. Okay, so put another way, bottom line is they look to the state to define whether or not you're married for SSI purposes. So the state law is what's going to dictate whether or not you're married. For supplemental security income benefits, the Act generally requires us to apply appropriate state law to determine marital status, and our regulations say that we use the law of the state of residence via 20 CFR section 416.1806. Now, with that said, I'll just simplify it for you. It means that if you're in a state and you get married in that state, for SSI marriage penalty purposes, they look at the state's rules. And they use the state's rules to figure out essentially whether or not the SSI marriage penalty will apply to you. Now, is the SSI marriage penalty fair? I'm going to go specifically to, and I really like this group, the NASI.org website is awesome. This is the National Academy of Social Insurance, big time nonprofit DC group. They do a great job bringing things that aren't always very clear into a very clear and concise, understood fashion. But let me tell you what their thoughts on this. And this was an article that was originally published by Hannah Orban of the Eileen Sweeney Graduate Intern in Disability Policy. It's an independent contribution by Hannah. Basically, opinions are not expressly endorsed by the National Academy of Social Insurance, but obviously they posted it on their website. So, there must be some connection there. They must like it to some degree. What is SSI's marriage penalty? The marriage penalty refers to the lower asset limit and benefit rate for couples who both receive SSI compared to two individual beneficiaries. Simplified, if you get married, you get effed. You get less money. Both of you get less money. You get, $471 less if it's two SSI people married together in 2024. Okay. It also applies to couples who are unmarried, but whom the SSA deems as presenting to the community as married. Put another way, when you have a marriage that's like an old common law marriage, it means like you two hold each other out as married, but you never went through the paperwork and the proper county state requirements to go ahead and file for a traditional marriage. But still in some states, they recognize that as common law marriage. At the maximum amount, couples receive only 1.5 times the benefit that individuals receive, and they lose 25% of the allowed household assets. These reductions constitute an implicit tax on benefits that apply only to married couples. Cool. All right, they go through the numbers. The impact on many SSI receiving households already are some of the lowest income in the country is potentially so substantial that it pushes many to forego marriage, which put another way, if you're on SSI benefits, you just don't marry somebody else on SSI benefits. A lot of people will be like, I don't understand why these women that are poor don't marry that guy who is also poor. Well, if they are both refugees on SSI benefits and want to continue and potentially go on to disability benefits, or it's just two poor individuals that are on SSI disability benefits, or whatever combination you want to come up with that is within statute, then you've made a very stupid move because you've just significantly reduced the amount of benefits that you can receive, because two SSI people, when they marry each other, they financially wipe each other out. They just decrease significant $471 between the two of them. Okay. Just not good. Now, with that said, let's go through this real quick. This implicit tax thus denies disabled couples the legal protections that the foundational societal institutions offers, allowing spouses to make critical medical choices, providing inheritance entitlements and tax benefits, not to mention the personal and cultural significance it conveys as the fights for marriage equality for LGBTQ people and before them interracial couples reflect. So what they're saying is men and women get screwed over. A racial couple or interracial couple interracial couple, man and woman, then they get screwed over. And now we are into the LGBTQ couples getting screwed over by the SSA. In addition to its punitive nature, I argue, this is from the article, that the marriage penalty is discriminatory based on the Supreme Court's opinion in Olmstead decision. Okay. Justice Ginsburg, which is one of my favorite justices, majority opinion for Olmstead VLC 1999, provided the groundbreaking interpretation of the Americans with Disability Act, right? The ADA is our foundation with this stuff. In that case, the court determined that the ADA, Congress, described the isolation and segregation of individuals with disabilities as, this is the important part, a serious and pervasive form of discrimination. So it's like an extra bad discrimination. Like there's bad discrimination, and then there's like an extra bad discrimination. Expanding on the meaning of Olmstead, Professor Samuel Bagenstos wrote that the core applications of anti-discrimination law are justified by the imperative to eliminate group-based stigma and to open opportunities for disadvantaged groups, right? So think about things the African Americans had to fight through to get people to, not have stigmas against those individuals. Think about what the gay couples have to make it through, right? The lesbian couples, the gay male couple. Think about what they have to overcome. After all, one of the ADA's main actions was to establish people with disabilities as a protected class to prohibit their subordination. Yet disincentivized marriage in practice, making it impossible for many impoverished SSI recipients, arguably perpetuates a system of subordination. Basically, you give them less money, you give them less resource limit, you screw them over, right? Because remember, you get $2,000 resource limit for an SSI person. Another SSI person gets another $2,000 resource limit. But you combine the two and they only get a $3,000 total resource limit. You hack $1,000 off of that. Dan Lane, thank you for the $2 donation. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. So what this argument, and I'm just going to read this last paragraph and then I'm going to go to the final part of this video. Justice Ginsburg's arguments in the Olmstead decision present compelling reasons against SSI's marriage penalty. It is difficult to see how severe economic penalties for marriage could be anything other than forced social isolation and discrimination on the basis of disability. By constraining disabled Americans to choose between marriage and much-needed benefits, SSI's marriage penalty contributes to the system of subordination that the ADA seeks to dismantle. All right, let me put that into simple, fun words. Roselle, thank you for the $5 donation. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So here's the deal. You have some states that are common law. Now, when they look at common law, okay, they look to see, let's get right to the thing here. And remember, if you want to read along, specifically SI 00501.152, again, 00501.152, determining whether two individuals are holding themselves out as a married couple, over here, right here. All right, section C, treatment of allegations 1, subsection C, either individual denies holding out as married couple, evidence to the contrary, blah, blah, blah. Here is essentially how they do an analysis. And they'll send out a form, the SSA 4178. That form just asks these questions. So let's just go through these questions. And these questions are all based on trying to figure out if somebody might be lying about being holding themselves out as quasi-married. Because in some states, common law, if you're quasi-married, if you're holding yourself out as married, you will lose benefit money for two SSI people being married. Cool. Here are the questions they ask. By what name or names are you known? How do you introduce the other person to friends, relatives, or others? How is mail addressed to you and to the other person? Are there any bills, installment contracts, tax returns, or other papers showing you as spouses? Is the place where you live owned or rented by both of you or only one? And then it goes on to ask other questions if you think that will help clarify how the individuals present themselves to the community. Now, additionally, they say, look, you might need to look at the following documents. You might need to purchase these documents from these potential holdouts who are quasi-married. Go look at mortgages, leases, property deeds, bank accounts, insurance policies, passports, tax returns, and credit cards. Information, preferably documents from other government programs, such as temporary assistance for needy families, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, public housing, etc. Magazine or newspaper subscription labels, personal mail, statements from relatives, close friends, or neighbors. These are all things that they will look at just to prove that you are potentially married to somebody else, even if you aren't de facto married. The age and probative value of the evidence is important to them, right? How old is the evidence? The role the individual plays in creating the evidence, right? Did they sign something themselves? Did they both sign it? The individual's explanation regarding evidence that indicates holding out, right? So here's kind of the thing. They have an entire search party procedure to figure out if there are two SSI people who are essentially holding out as married individuals. Now, here's the incredible part. I had a claimant call me, and the claimant said to me, they're applying the marriage penalty rule, and this doesn't make sense. I was like, why would it? You're both SSI. Why would you get married? Why did you get married? Because he got married. And he said, well, we're married now, but we're two gay men. And we didn't say that. He put in his terms. Those are my terms. And so basically, I said to him, yeah, but don't. And to me, I thought, lesbian couples, gay couples, couples that have trans aspects to them, I thought, right, that they just kind of slid under the radar. Right, that was the whole gig. They just slid under the radar because it wasn't really, you know what I mean? The states hadn't all figured it out yet. They were still working on it. Yeah, we had a federal rule, but the states are the ones that dictate. But apparently now the SSA is starting to hold the LGBTQ community to the same standards, which I think is abuse and immoral, as regular, male, female, traditional married couples. So this abuse that everybody kind of sees as this completely just unruly, ridiculous, horrible policy is now being applied to the LGBTQ community as well, because now they have gained rights to marry. And as a result of that, even the whole holding out thing, which is very, that could go many ways. Because remember, a lot of gay people, they won't get married because there's negatives to the potential of how people might go after them for it. So what happens is, they'll kind of, okay, we're living together. We've been a couple for this is my significant other, yada, yada, right? But now the SSA can look at them and say, well, here's the thing. We're going to have to go ahead and take from your significantly below poverty level benefits, $471 between the two of you. So what's happening is our gay, lesbian, trans, queer individuals getting treated equally now to how male and female married couples are, even if they're only quasi-married common law. Yes. So does that mean that unfortunately these gay, lesbian, queer couples are now getting biased against just like regular married people who have a traditional male-female marriage? Yes. Is this really weird considering that the president is President Biden and his entire push is to make sure that the rights and benefits of the LGBTQ community are protected? It's weird. Now, here's the interesting thing. On his to get passed list, getting rid of the marriage penalty for SSI couples that are married or quasi-married, right? Palimony, right? That kind of pal thing should be at the top of his list to pass it. It doesn't cost the SSA that much to get rid of it. It's not really going to affect the benefits in any material way. It helps him build trust with the LGBTQ community. And at the end of the day, they should have done this 30 years ago. They should have never even passed this into law. So it is bizarre to me. It is weird that President Joseph Biden would essentially not get rid of the marriage penalty rule to save face in front of the gay, lesbian, queer community to get their votes in the upcoming election. It doesn't make sense. He could easily do this and it would be a shining beacon. It would cost so little. It is the lowest hanging branch on the Social Security benefit fixes that could be brought forward. It is the lowest hanging branch. So, as a result of this, we will continue to see into essentially the year, 4 of President Biden, continued unfortunate LGBTQ plus punishment for being married, just like a traditional male-female marriage would be. And I don't understand why the senators out there keep pushing bills. Cassidy, the classic senators that are more traditional, like Democrats. Because remember, Biden's part of like a group of well-funded Democrats, and like they have a thing. And then there's a lot of other Democrats over here that don't have any rock star power and don't have much money, and they all kind of fall into like the senators and House reps that will probably never become president, but they're more traditional Democrats. It's the agenda is less immigration, more American people, making sure the poor are okay, making sure people's rights are increased, etc. So ultimately, what's happening is President Biden's greatest opportunity to look good in front of the LGBTQ community when it comes to Social Security benefits, specifically for supplemental security income, specifically for gay, lesbian, queer marriages, trans marriages, etc., is to just get rid of the marriage penalty. It's so easy. It's so cheap. And the positivity that would come to you with the amount of votes that you could get would be massive. So anyways, guys, I will catch you at the next video. The next video is an interesting one. It's basically talking about the SSA and how it's causing a new generation of recipients to have PTSD. But I will catch you at the next video. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe and click the all button. If you like the content where I go through the laws, if you like the videos, please go to Google and type in Disability Resolution Florida or Disability Resolution Law Firm and leave some stars. I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful night, and I will see you essentially at the next video in about 10 minutes. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.